Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome back to my video. And on this occasion, let's to know what is psychoanalysis. Okay, Simon Freud argues that the creation of civilization has resulted in repression of basic human instincts. In addition, every individual who just enter human society sacrifices for the sake of whole community. The most important instinctual drive is sexual. Freud also conveyed the theory of three levels of consciousness, namely conscious, preconscious, and unconscious. According to Freud's psychoanalytic theory, there are three structures of human personality, namely the ID, ego, and superego. Okay, let's explain them. ID consists of instincts, both instincts to life, libido, nor the instinct to die, aggressive urge. The ID works to fulfill an instinctual urge satisfying physical needs. At the satisfying physical needs, it aims to reduce tension by means of increase pleasure and avoid pain. The way the ID work is based on the pleasure principle. The second, ego, the rational aspect of responsible personality of control ID. The ego function as a mediator between the ID and the external world and facilitate interaction between the two. The ego follow the relative principle which try to withstand the demands of the ID, the want to be fulfilled immediately until the right object is found to satisfy needs and reduce tension. And the third, the last, superego, the moral aspect of personality that comes from parenting or norm and values in society. Developed from childhood, when the individual accepts rules of behavior from parents or caregivers, the ego plays a role in maintaining a balance between inner drive or ID with social rules or superego prevailing in the outside world. The ego does not stop the ID's impulses, but tries delay or redirect the demands of the ID. Adapt to environmental conditions or relative phase. This way of working the ego adheres to the principle of reality or relative principle. Okay, next. Dreams in psychoanalysis. Okay, when human dreams, the location of human consciousness is at the preconscious level, where the ID and superego play more roles than the ego. Not infrequently, even pent-up desires can appear through dreams. In his book, Interpretation of Dreams, Freud explained that dreams are a bridge between the world with feelings, impression, and hidden or repressed desires. Dreams are the fulfillment of desires of what cannot be realized in the external world. Dreaming is a somatic process during sleep that works to keep the mental from believing. Any dream cannot just appear. Dreams require materials that need to be assembled to appear in sleep. This material include recent impression, indifferent impression, childhood experience to somatic stimuli. Somatic stimulation in question is a psychological stimulus given during sleep, which is then expresses in dreams. The stimulus can be internal, such as body organ, or external, such as being splashed with water, listening to music, or sleeping conditions. This material are processed adjusted to the individual's mental condition. Regarding psychoanalysis in relation to culture and civilization, okay, let me, sorry, let me to explain you guys about culture in psychoanalysis. Okay, regarding psychoanalysis in relation of culture to culture and civilization, it is contained in the late works of Freud, among others, Totem and Taboo, The Future of Illusion, Civilization, and its discontent, and Moses and monotheism. Freud considered culture as a projection of subconscious impulses. In Totemen Taboo, Freud discusses how the pattern of women's mental development shapes civilization. Psychoanalysis become now in French in at least two ways. Sorry, first through a medical approach, which was first introduced in 1925 by the evolutionary group of psychiatrists, and in 1926 by the Société Psychanalytique de Paris. A second, psychoanalysis was introduced as an intellectual approach. The literary and philosophical thinker of avant-garde, who used various interpretations of Freud with each other. Okay, let me to explain you guys about Lacanian psychoanalysis, synapse psychoanalysis, Slavos, and Lacanian fantasy. Okay, Freud translation of psychoanalysis to textual analysis begins with a somewhat crude version of psychoanalography and ends with a rather sophisticated account of how meanings are made. However, his suggestion about the real pleasures of reading may have a certain sibling effect on psychoanalytic criticism. That is, if meaning dependent of the association a reader brings to a text, what value can there be of psychoanalytic textual analysis? When psychoanalytic critic tells us that the text really means X, the full logic of Freudian psychoanalysis is to say that this is only what is meant to you. According to Lacan, we are born in a state of deficiency and then spend the rest of our lives trying to overcome this condition. Deficiency is experienced in different ways and as different things, but is always an unpresentable expression of the fundamental human condition. The result is an endless search for the imagined moment of fulfillment. Lacan regards this as search for what he termed object petit, or another small object. What is wanted but is forever out research missing object signifies an imaginary moment in time when we are whole and unable to hold this object. We entertain ourselves with move strategies and object replacement. Lacan argues that we travel through three defining stage of development. The first is the mirror stage, the second is the Forda play, and the third is Oedipus complex. Our life begins in a realm called the real Lacan. Here we are simple. In real, we don't know where we and where everything starts. The real is like nature. Before symbolization, it exists outside in what we call objective reality and within what Freud called us. Popular cinema, produced two contradictory from official pleasure. The first invites scopophilia, the second one promotes narcissism. The contradiction exists because in film terms, one implies the separation of the erotic identify of the subject from the object on the screen activity as scopophilia. The other demands identification of the ego with the object on the screen through the audience interaction to and recognition of the like. In Freudian term, in distinction is between the scopophilic instinct or pleasure of viewing others as erotic object and the ego libido. But in a word structure by sexual imbalance, gaze pleasure has been separated into two distinct positions, men looking and women showing. Therefore, women are very, very important for gaze pleasure. Fantasy is not the same as illusion. Rather, fantasy organizes how we see and understand the reality. It works as a firm through which we see and make sense of the world. Our fantasies are what makes us unique. They provide us with our point of view, organizing how we see and experience the world around us. When the pop musical Jarvik Choker appeared on BBC Radio, first a long-running program, this Iceland Dish, he made this comment: "It doesn't really matter where things happen. It's kind of what's going on in your head that makes life interesting." This is an excellent example of the organizing role of fantasy. Argues that reality is a fantasy construction that enable us to mask the real of our desire. Freud gives an account of a man who dreams that his dead son come to him to complain, "Can you see that I'm burning?" The father, Freud argues, is awoken by the overwhelming smell of burning. In other words, the outside stimulation burning, which had been outside stimulation burning, which had been incorporated into a dream, had become too strong to be accommodated by the dream, according to Yazek. The Lacanian reading is the directly opposite to this. The subject does not awake himself when the external irritation become too strong. The logic of what the logic of his awakening is quite different. First, he construct a dream, a story which enable his to prolong his sleep to avoid awakening into reality, but the thing that encounters in the dream the reality of his desire, the Lacanian real. The two tones between Marxism and Freud are seen as contradictory and therefore cannot be put together. Marxism looks at the objective world, social and economic process whose laws of development are examined by Marxists, while Freud's theory is psychoanalytic, looking at human life. Ruben Osborne states that there are no holidays, mainly stating the study of basic human nature. On the contrary, they complement each other, and both of them view humans as subjects of irrational forces. For Marxism, this power comes from the world of economics. For psychoanalysis, human irrationality has its roots in the child's way of things and feelings, the typical life of an adult human. Practically, this book discusses how to make psychoanalysis studied more carefully by the followers of Marxism, with the intention that Marxism is studied more carefully by psychoanalysts. Okay, next. The difference between Freud psychoanalysis and other psychoanalysis. Freud is causally oriented, emphasizes the role of the past. Freud view the drive that causes behavior more than the sex drive. The technique of Freud's approach is general mechanistic and biological. The theory applies to everyone. Freud emphasized that origin of personality in childhood. According to Freud, reducing the motivation of human action to sex and aggression only. According to Freud, humans have little or no choice in making their personality. According to Freud, current behavior is shaped by past experience. Freud strongly emphasized the unconscious component of behavior. The main driver of human behavior for Freud were the biological instinct for survival and aggression. Freud emphasized the experience in early childhood permanently shape personality. And the last, Freud divided the stage of development into five stages only until childhood. Okay, okay, I think that's all for me about psychoanalysis. I hope you can understand what I explain you guys. But if you know understand, maybe you can search in Google or YouTube, or you maybe you can read the book about psychoanalysis. And see you in next my video.